Hi, I'm Tyler.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
And we're going to be doing the continuation of the video on product and cost curves. We're going to be focusing on the cost curves. And just remember that our notation might be different than yours, that your professor uses, so just make sure to check that before you turn it in, just to make sure. Alright, so this is a continuation of the previous video of product and cost curves, and we changed the output just to make it a little bit easier for the math here. So it gives us the output, total variable cost, and the total cost of all these levels of output. And we're asked to find the marginal cost, average total cost, average variable cost, and average fixed cost of each level of output. So marginal cost, what it is the change in the total cost divided by the change in output. So at 0, there's no marginal cost because we have no change in anything. And in this case, since output goes up by 1 every time, the change in output is just going to be 1, so the marginal cost is just going to be the change in total cost. So we can see that from every level here, it's just 50. So for every output level, marginal cost is 50. So for average total cost, it's just the level of total cost divided by the output. So again, for the first one, we don't have any output, so there's no average total cost. And for the first one, it's 150 divided by 1, which equals 150. And then 200 divided by 2, which equals 100. 250 divided by 3, which equals 83.3. 300 divided by 4 is 75. And 350 divided by 5 is 70. So notice that the average total cost curve is decreasing with output. And remember that average total cost will eventually go back up. We just don't see it with at this level of output that we have here. So average variable cost, as it says down here, is the total variable cost divided by output. Makes sense, right? So again, for 0 output, we don't have any average variable costs because it's divided by 0. That's not a thing. So all we just divide this column by this column. So 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. Pretty easy, right? So average fixed cost is the total fixed cost divided by output. So it's this column divided by output. So here's where we have all the fixed costs at the beginning, and then as you get more output, you'll see that it will spread out over time. So the average fixed cost will decrease. So again, for the first one, we don't have any average fixed cost, we don't have any output. But then from there, it's 100, 50, 33.3, 25, and 20. And you'll notice that average total cost equals average variable cost plus average fixed cost. So that's a good way to check and make sure that your columns are right, is that average fixed cost and average variable cost will add to equal average total cost.
So now we're going to look at using a diagram to determine these values. So here we have drawn the marginal cost, average total cost, and average variable cost. So now from looking at this graph, we can determine each of those values just by looking at where they intersect at output 100, and that's important. So at output 100, marginal cost is equal to 3 because that's where it intersects at that output. Then therefore, average variable cost at 100, so you bring it up, that would intersect at 4. And then marginal cost, or average total cost, would intersect at 5. And so just from looking at it, that's what we can immediately see from this graph. But if you're trying to find things such as, for example, average fixed costs, you would just take the difference between average total costs and average variable costs, that 5 and 4, to get average fixed costs, which would be 1. And then you can also get total cost from this curve if you take average total cost and multiply it by output. So in this case, it'd be 100 or whatever value you're looking at. And then you can find total variable costs, doing something similar. If you take average variable costs and multiply it by output. And finally, you can do total fixed costs. If you take average fixed costs times output. And for the last one, you can do average fixed cost times output, or you could take the difference of total costs and total fixed costs. So if we wanted to calculate values for each of these, then we could just look at the graph. And so, for example, for total costs, you would take the average total cost, which is 5, and then multiply by output, which in this case is 100. So you'd get 500. And then for total variable cost, you can do the same thing. You can take this average variable cost of 4 and multiply it by the 100, which would give you 400. And then same for total fixed costs. You could take just the difference of those two, which would give you 100. And then if you wanted to check your work, your total variable cost plus total fixed costs should equal total costs.
Okay, so now we're dealing with both product and cost curves. So it's kind of be a little difficult to keep them straight, but we just got to make sure everything is right when we're putting it in the table. So it gives us the total product of labor here from 1 laborer to 4, and it says that the first laborer, or when labor equals 1, output equals 6. 2 laborers can produce 14, 3 laborers can produce 20, and 4 can produce 24. So that's our output, our total output based on labor. So it says here that the cost of each additional laborer is $20 a unit. So our total variable cost is going to be $20 times the amount of labor. So for the first one, it's just going to be 20. For the second one, 40, 60, and 80. Also, you should note that the total fixed cost is 100 at every unit of output. Since total fixed cost is a cost curve, it's based on output rather than labor. So just to keep it straight. So then total costs, just put a little $sign there so we keep it straight. So for total cost, you add the total variable cost and total fixed costs for every output level, basically. It's not every specific unit of output, but it's every level of output. So at output of 6, our total costs are 120. At 14, 140. At 20, 160. And at 24, 180. So now, what this question is actually asking us, after all this work, is what is the average total cost at 20 units? So at 20 units, we're going to be dealing with this row right here. And it wants to know our average total cost. So average total cost is going to equal our total cost divided by output. So in this case, our total cost equals 160. Our output is 20. So our average total cost, $8. So after that very complicated problem, we have a little bit simpler one. So it says when we produce 10 skate parts, so our output is 10. Our total fixed cost is 100. And our total variable cost is 300. So what can we say about the AFC, average fixed cost, and AVC, average variable cost? So we know that average fixed costs are equal to total fixed costs divided by output. So in this example, our average fixed cost is 100 divided by 10, which equals 10. And what can we say about average variable costs? We know that average variable cost is going to equal the total variable cost divided by output. So in this case, it will be 300 divided by 10. So average variable cost So yeah, that's it.
Thanks for watching our video, guys, and if you need any more help, you can visit us down at the Econ Tutoring Center in BA 211. Thank you.
Thank you.